Good afternoon and welcome to Making Meaning, everyone. I am Jackie Levine. I'm the coordinator of school leadership and marketing services here at P&W BOCES, and I'm delighted to have our guest today, the wonderful Andrew Marotta. Andrew is a high school principal for Port Jervis High School, and he is also an author and a consultant for P&W BOCES. And Andrew wrote the book, Surviving and Thriving as the Principal. It's the principal surviving and thriving. Is that correct, Andrew?
You got that right. 1 for 1 so far, Jackie.
All right, I'm in. So Andrew and I thought it would be a great idea to do my very first Making Meaning live podcast today, so that being we are in this new realm of digital learning and digital conversations and Zoom meetings. I thought I could take my podcast, which is usually just an audio clip, and turn it into a live video. So this is a first for me. I've only done about 3 podcasts altogether, even just audio recordings. So this is really a first for me. I'm a novice and it might be a little clumsy, but that's okay because I have this pro here, Andrew, who's going to walk me through it as I make mistakes and screw up, which I know I will. But anyway, so Andrew, so great to see you. You are Mr. Positivity. And I thought after a couple of weeks like we've had, the person I would want to talk to most about leadership and this situation as a whole is you. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And why don't you introduce yourself to our audience a little bit? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Jackie. It's an honor to be here with you, and getting to know you and Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES over the last 3 years has been a blessing for me. It's a great organization. You guys offer so much, great opportunities for educators, just so professional. And just a quick story before we get started. Going to different places and meeting different people, right? Think about how people go to your schools and how they're greeted and how they're treated. And I've told you this about my first time going down to Putnam Northern Westchester. So warmly greeted by the staff when I first arrived. People checked in with me. Do you need anything? And then multiple staff came into the room to introduce themselves, offer support, welcome me to your organization. It was fantastic from the top, Dr. Allen, to yourself, to, even the wonderful assistants that you have there, the custodial staff, just so warm and friendly. So really, it's a great organization, and it's an honor for me to work with you and also be on this program. So, but to get to your first question, Andrew Marotta, Port Jervis High School principal. I've been there 15 years, the principal 8 years, and I was the assistant principal 7. So a lot of time in those hallways, those classrooms, and that community. I love Port Jervis. I love our kids. I love our Raider pride. I love our Port pride. So that's me and my job as principal. And, about 3 years ago, I had a single experience, right? The power of a single experience. And the story is I went to Dr. Rob Gilbert's class at Montclair State University. He's a sports psychologist, and I went there to speak about school leadership as well as my role as a college basketball official and now a former college basketball official. And I was speaking to a class of grad students. It was a 2-hour class. Dr. Gilbert didn't really give me an outline, so I prepared some stuff, and him and I hit it off. It was just fantastic. He liked me, I liked him, I liked the vibe in the class, and I love Dr. Gilbert. If you're looking for some inspiration during this break, let me give you this number. No one remembers any numbers anymore, but he runs the Success Hotline, and that Success Hotline number is 973-743-4690. Again, Dr. Rob, the Success Hotline, 973-743-4690. If you're going to do anything over the next couple of weeks, months it might be, but if you're going to do anything to better yourself, get a notebook and call that number every day. I'm telling you, Dr. Gilbert leaves a message about being successful. It's totally changed my life and totally impacted my life. And what happened on that night when I visited, I had a great interaction with the class and Dr. Gilbert. And when I was leaving, he handed me 10 books. 10. It was like a stack like this. And he said, Andrew, where's your book? And I said, Doc, I can't write a book. I got 3 little kids at home. I'm a high school principal, a college basketball referee. I said, I don't even have time to go to the bathroom.
Mhm.
And he said, Andrew, you have to write a book. You're fantastic at what you do. And he said, just start with this. Write down everything you do as a principal. Just write them down. You don't have to write the book, just write them down. And on the way home is about an hour drive. I don't text and drive, but I did do talk to text on the way home. And on the way home, in an hour, I had 60 things. The next day at school, I always carry my notepad with me. The next day at school, I had 40 more things before 10 o'clock. Within 24 hours, I had 100 tips from that. And that experience led me to write this book. And I added some others, obviously, to get to 125. But that story changed my life and impacted my life. And soon thereafter, I was able to present with different organizations, including yours. And it really kind of turned my role into being a mentor for principals and a leader for principals, and just someone to be able to bounce resources off and bounce ideas off and be there to help support. So that's the kind of story of the book in a nutshell. Yeah.
And when it comes to telling stories, Andrew, you are one of the master storytellers that I know. And you don't only lead your school and write your book and consult, but you also have a blog. And I remember recently you shared a blog where you revealed a little bit of your childhood and what life was like as you were growing up. Tell us your story. Tell us where you've come from. How did you get to Port Jervis?
Yeah. Thanks, Jack. That's a great question. I was born and raised in Staten Island, Italian-American family. My dad was kind of the ruler of the roost. He was the man. I have three brothers and sisters, or one brother and two sisters. So I was the baby. They kind of left me to tend to myself, So I'm very kind of driven, self-starter. But all strong-willed Marottas. The nickname a lot of Marotta is real. You can ask those that know me. But I get that, that's a gift and a curse, but I get that gift from my parents. Very strong people. You look in what's happening now and how families are responding and reacting. I could just imagine what my dad would say to us as kids if this was happening now. Like, here's what you need to do. Here's the list of chores. Here's your schoolwork. Get it done. I'll see you at dinner. Like, that was it. And if you didn't get it done, we don't live in this world right now, but he had the iron hand too. And he would, make sure that we took care of those things.
Sure.
But he was loving and, so I went to college in North Carolina, a small college, Guilford College in North Carolina. And I had another single experience there that was life impacting. Had a chance to play basketball down there. Loved it. And I went to one of my buddy's house in a suburb outside Winston-Salem. It's a tiny little place called King, North Carolina. And he had a car at the time. I did not. And we drive up to his house, and he turns the the car off, and he leaves the key in the ignition. And I said, Kevin, you left the key in the ignition. He goes, I know. And I said, well, what are you doing? Why would you leave the key there? And he looked at me and he said, why wouldn't I? And in that moment, I said, whoa, here's, from Staten Island, New York, where they'll take your gum out of your mouth if you're not looking, and I said, I want to live in a place that you can do that. And long story short, I was going to go to North Carolina. That's another story for another day. But my wife and I, long story, too long for this podcast. But my wife and I compromised on Milford, Pennsylvania. Again, there's one traffic light in our town, and don't go telling anybody, but my key, the key fob, not the key, but the key fob is in the car most times. So that's kind of how I wound up in Port Jervis. We moved, and I was plugging away, trying to get a job, and was lucky enough to land in Port Jervis, which is right on the border of New York and Pennsylvania. And I live in Milford, Pennsylvania. So it's a great commute, 15 minutes.
That's great. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that with us. And, it is important to be in a place and ground your feet for a while and really get to know the community and the culture. That's how one establishes their leadership. And I can only imagine you having been at Port Jervis for so long has given you the opportunity to establish strong relationships and trust in your community so that during a time like this, folks rely on you, are turning to you, and are trusting in your leadership. So what does high school leadership look like right now for you in this moment?
Yeah, another great question, Jack. Yeah, this is a different time. This is a new time. This is a tricky time, and just an unsure. People are unsure. So again, I try to find the positive in things. I try to look at things with a positive lens, and I look at it like a blank canvas, right? Imagine you're an artist and you were painting this painting for a long time, and you know what it looks like, and this is what it is. And all of a sudden, someone, all right, now you have a chance to start a new painting. What does it look like? A great artist is going to start painting, right? They might imagine what it looks like in their mind. They're going to create something that's beautiful because they're a talented artist. So I look at it like a blank canvas. And I also look at it that this is an opportunity to take risks. When you started out, right? This is your first time doing it. You're trying something and you said, I might make mistakes and I might stumble. Absolutely. It's the first time you're doing it, and you're doing great, by the way. But so what, right? It's not the amount of times you fail that counts. It's the amount of times that you keep trying and succeed that counts. So if you do 10 of these and 9 of them are a bust, that 10th one is going to be better and better and better. So to go back to what I was saying, I lost it. The blank canvas, the try method. This is the time, again, to take risks. So my brother is a chemist at Estee Lauder. He makes the mascara. He's a real talented chemist.
I'll have
real
to
sharp guy. Get those samples, absolutely. Right. But I had a chance to interview him on my podcast about leadership, and he said, Andrew, here at Estee Lauder, we use the try method. And I'm thinking he's going to say some fancy formula with letters and numbers and exponents and all this kind of stuff. But he said, we try this and we try that until we find something that works. And if you're lucky enough to find something that's really unique and works, it's gonna make your career, right? And he made all this kind of cool mascara and stuff. So I would urge leaders, I would urge educators, teachers, and even students to put that try method into your toolbox and try new things. Because if it doesn't work now, so what? And I've learned about Screencastify, Google Hangouts. We're using Zoom today. There's so many different things that we can try, and now is the time. So I think school leadership is wide open right now, to go back to your question. But I think it's a chance for us to lead. I think it's a chance for us to support people. We don't want to be in and I never want to be in this a gotcha mode where teachers might be afraid to get in trouble or afraid that they did something wrong. No. I encourage you and I support you to try something new. I want to empower you. And the last thing is collaboration. Here you and I are collaborating with educators from around your area and around the Northeast here. I think it's a great time for educators, because we've been given the gift of time, to collaborate. Here we are on a Friday at 1:00. When would I be able to do something like this as a high school principal if I'm in school and the bells and the kids and the thing? I would never even have a chance to do it. So here we are collaborating. So those are some things that I think leadership looks like in these times today.
That's really terrific advice. And I love the idea of the try method. In the book Switch, they talked about bringing change about in terms of finding bright spots and getting people to focus on the bright spots. And I'm sure there are those in your organization, in your school, that are trying something new and are having those successes. So what is one bright spot that you can share from this past week with us, that, from a teacher or a student or your own experience?
Yeah. And I'll break that question up because the gift of time right now is really something that has profoundly impacted me. Being a high school principal, the kids are 13, 11, and 8, and those that have children, how busy you are with them. And but the gift of time has been really profoundly just wonderful. So personally, for me, the bright spot is to have that time at home with my children, with my wife. Just to be home, right? Like to not have to go anywhere, not have to go to work, not have to go to a presentation, not have to go anywhere, and actually not have to, but encouraged to stay home, almost directed to stay home. So that's been a blessing for me, that time. As a high school principal, I get up at 4:45, 5:00 in the morning, and that gets tough sometimes, to be able to sleep till 6, 6:30, 7, like, that's sleeping in. That is, to get that rest has been just a blessing for me personally. professionally, as my high school principal, it's been wonderful to see my staff trying new things, doing new things, reaching out, saying, "Hey, can I use this? Can I do this?" The other day, that Monday, we had some snow and ice and rain. It was nasty. We had 10 plus people helping give out Chromebooks. We were outside the tent. It was icing, raining, and here we are running out computers to cars. Parents were signing. We gave out over 200 Chromebooks that day, almost 500 total. But on that snowy day, to see those family members and community members coming for those Chromebooks, to see those adults working together when they didn't really have to go to work, right? Like, who wanted to go out? People are concerned with the virus and contact. So those were some bright spots. And then just watching the giving people, how generous people are during this time. Small business owners paying their staffs, people donating money to small business. I'm a Mr. Rogers fan, a little nerdy, a little corny, but I love his message. I'm fighting with my kids to watch the movie. They don't want to watch it. But Mr. Rogers, would say, in a time of crisis, look for the helpers. There are always helpers, so look for the helpers, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it's been very inspiring to try to be a helper, but to see the amount of help, not only on social media, but also out in the communities. A quick story, I took a walk. We have a new dog. I know you're a dog lover. My girl Ruby here. And I said, kids, let's take some bags, right? We'll pick up some garbage on the path. And we did about a 2-mile loop between our roads and around. Not one piece of garbage on the ground. And the kids were like, Dad, where's all the trash? And what we determined is that people had come before us and were doing that. People had done that in our community. What a great thing, right? Let me grab a bag and pick up trash. So those are some things that I found as bright spots. I think it's important to look for those bright spots because if you focus on all the negativity out there, it could wear on you. I know there's a lot of bad things happening, a lot of rough times for people, especially the small business owners and entrepreneurs, that kind of stuff. So my heart goes out to them, but I think it's important to look for bright spots. So great question.
Well, those are some really great examples of bright spots. And now I feel inspired and I want to go watch the Mr. Rogers movies. So thanks for that reminder. Yeah. And I think we do have to rely on our helpers right now. We do have to rely on the goodness of others because of all of those things you mentioned and the small businesses that are struggling and the folks who may be facing layoffs and hard financial times due to what's happening. So not to go into a negative place at this point, but this does bring up worries for everyone. What is your greatest worry right now as a principal?
Yeah, I'm going to sub out your word worry, and I'm going to put concern or moving to the front of my decision making, things like that. Because worry, it's like being in a rocking chair. You ain't going anywhere. I believe you have to take action. I believe that you have to, as a leader, kind of prioritize things and then take action. So worrying, is not in my vocabulary. I think we have to have a positive outlook, as I talked about before, that we're going to get through this. I think we have to have that growth mindset that this, what can I do to help this grow? What don't I know yet to help this? But some of the things that are on my mind, certainly the emotional and social wellness of my students. Port Jervis is a mixed community in terms of the financial and the demographics that we have, but there's a lot of needy kids. Kids are needy anywhere, right? In wealthy families, not wealthy, kids are needy everywhere. But Port Jervis, these are my kids, they're our kids, and I think there's a lot that they're missing when they're not in school. That social interaction and what's happening in their homes. So I'm worried. There's that word. I'm concerned about the social and emotional wellness of my students being away from school for so long. I'm also thinking about what's this going to look like if and when we come back. Those seniors that are waiting on that college announcement. The junior semi-formal is coming up. We had a big Harlem Wizards fundraiser that helps fund our all-night grad party that we hope to have rescheduled. All the things that are missing for these kids. Kids are worried about grades and their class ranking and that kind of stuff. How is all of that going to shape out? And that's, undetermined at this time. New York, right before we came on, just extended the closure through April 14th. And, what does it look like? Also, right, the financial impact of kids' families. How many of their families lost their jobs? What is their homes looking like? Unemployment, and then New York State and the financial burden that's going to come down on New York State. What are school budgets going to look like? Are people going to be able to vote for the budget and pass and go to professional developments and things like that? As all of that, teachers reach out to me about, is their job in jeopardy for next year? Or are there going to be that kind of cut? So those are some things that I'm concerned about. I, again, try to keep a positive mindset of that we're going to work through this, but I think some things are going to look different for everyone moving forward. You've heard this saying a lot. There's a new normal out there now, and we don't know what that is yet. Right? When was the last time you met somebody and you didn't shake their hand or greet them somehow? Right? That's odd, kind of walking up to somebody like
a change of our culture.
Yeah, it is. And I think there's going to be a lot of changes moving forward. So those are some of the things in my mind, that I'm thinking about.
Well, those are definitely concerns that I've heard from a lot of our leaders. But now I kind of want to take a pause and look through the lens of Andrew, the father. So as a father, what are some of your concerns right now?
Yeah. And thank you, Jack. Personal, I love my family. They're wonderful kids. They're great kids. I'm really blessed. Claire is 13. She's a seventh grader. Matthew's 11. He's a fifth grader. And Tessa, the tornado, my little one, is a third grader.
I love that.
I'm really blessed. I look at what my parents gave for me. So again, to be home with them has been just wonderful. My former life of a basketball referee compounded being a high school principal with the amount of night events. I missed a lot of their stuff. My wife is a saint and took care of everything. And there was a lot of nights where I wasn't home. So to be home with them each night, to have tucked them in each night. My little one always asks, am I going to see you tomorrow, Daddy? All day, Tessa. All day, So they're very self-sufficient. They've inspired me. I know you saw my tweet the other day. It was a picture of my kid. I came down about 7:15 to put the coffee on, and there's my son Matthew doing his work. Oh. Tessa came down today, right onto the Chromebook, checking in, Google Classroom. She's in third grade. We're both educators, my wife and I, so our kids, they're in school mode, right? And but they set up their Chromebooks, they set up their area. I've been booted up to the attic right now because they have the dining room table. We extended it. Everyone has their own little area. We're looking to try to get them outside, riding their bikes. I think scheduling is very important to get them on a schedule, right? Every once in a while on a snow day, they'll have a pajama day, right? And they stay in their pajamas all day and watch TV all day and eat ice cream all day and all of those fun things. Great. But we think it's important, my wife and I, that they have a schedule. They're up early. They're doing their work. One of our sayings is, make the important thing the important thing. So to take those important things and do them first. I'm also challenged my kids to be those helpers, right? We've asked them to FaceTime or Google Hang or connect with a loved one that maybe they don't talk to every day. We called my Aunt Marion down in Staten Island yesterday. She's actually in Florida because she got stuck down there. So we've asked them to do that. We've challenged them to be outside a lot. And, we've really dove into the chores. They're responsible for their chores. And we're trying to model that and teach that to them. So, but I'm blessed. I got 3 great kids, and I'm thrilled to be home with them. And I'm inspired by them and the work they're doing in their school, but also watching them take care of their rooms and take care of their laundry and take care of their lunches. And they're pretty self-sufficient. And I credit my wife for not doing everything for them, yet teaching them how to do it, right? And she's done a really good job with that. And that's Team Marotta. So
I love it. I love it. You're giving advice and strategies to parents as we're talking, because so many parents are now facing this overwhelming challenge of working full time, supporting their children's learning full time, and balancing all of the other anxieties and worries that are coming at them. So some of the tips and things that you're doing with your family can be strategies to parents who are struggling with that as well, whether they're educators or in another field. So I agree with you. Schedules for students, routines are important, helps them stay on track, helps them feel safe, and can help them in the long run as they grow into adults. So that's great. And it sounds like your family, I was going to ask you, what are you most proud of right now? But it sounds like your family is what you are most proud of right now. And it's just great. You glow as you talk about them. So it's really wonderful to hear you speak about them and to see you talking about them.
Thanks, Jack. Let me add one more thing. I think it's important to chunk the work, break up the work. If your kid gets down and they're starting at 8, you shouldn't be having them going 8 to 2, right? Like, we're going to treat this like school, and you're going to sit there. No. People used to ask me all the time, Andrew, how do you stay focused in a college basketball game for 40 minutes? It's 2 hours, but how do you work that 40 minutes of the game and stay focused, right? Well, when the game first starts, I'm not thinking, I got to stay focused for this whole game. I got to get every call right. I got to do this for the next 2 hours and be perfect. No. There's a commercial break, and people don't know this when the commercials come, but if you, in the world of sports, they're called TV timeouts. And in college basketball, the first whistle after the 16-minute mark, they're going to a commercial. And then they're at 4 minutes after that. So the next one is the first whistle after 12 minutes. The next one is the first whistle after 8 minutes, and then 4 minutes, and then halftime. So I ain't got to work the whole game. I got to work till that 16-minute timeout. And I am going to be all in, all focused, dialed in. Who can't work for 4 minutes? Come on. So my daughter had a bunch of work to do for math. She wanted to get it all done. I said, Tessa, do 2 worksheets and then go take the dog for a walk, or go get a snack, or go get a drink, or go get dressed, and then come back and do another 2, right? Maybe set a timer then. They all got their little Alexa timers. Set a reminder. All right, 2 more worksheets at 9:30. Boom, you want to go watch Clone Wars, Star Wars, they love it? Go for it. That's a 30-minute break. Come back at 10 o'clock. Things like that are great tips to help chunk the work. You ain't got to work 8 to 2. You got to work 8 to 9, then you get a 30-minute break. Then you get going 9:30 to 10:15. Whatever it is, have them chunk the work.
That is a great tip, Andrew. Thank you for saying that, because we do need brain breaks. And I think studies even show that based on your age, you can only work so much in a period of time. And I think for adults, it's about 18 minutes tops. And that's why I believe TED Talks uses that research to make their talks only a certain amount of time as well, because the adult brain can only focus for that amount of time. I'd have to find the research and share it with our audience. But that's important to remember, that our children need even shorter amounts of time of focus and then a break and an ability to move on, especially when learning is being done. So thank you. So I was just about to say, knowing that you're so proud of your family, but I know there's something else you're very proud of, and that's your work. That's your book. And you told us a little bit about your story of how the book came to be. But what was it like? Tell me the story of publishing that book, of promoting the book. How did that feel and look for you, not only as a principal and a referee, but a family man trying to do all of these things?
Yeah, and thanks, Jack. My dad used to say all the time, SPS, self-praise stinks, right? So, you don't, I try not to talk about it too much, but I don't want the book to sit on the shelf. I got to get it out there. So my mindset has been not, wow, look, I got a book, but versus, hey, this could be a resource to help you. I think you'd like it, right? And that's been my kind of thought being it. But to hold my book with my name on it, it was something that I never thought about. But now that it's here, it's like, wow, it is very self-satisfying. It does, it's been nice for me. So thank you for asking that. But once I wrote all those tips down, right, I had them all in a thing, right? And it was easy then, like, because I lived it, I did it. I admire fiction writers that are creating a story out of their mind, right? Like just creating something. I think that's great. I've been blessed to share some of these stories and have some of these stories. But once I had them all here, again, I kind of, just like I described, I kind of chunked it. I said, well, I'm going to write 3 tips tonight. And I was able to kind of break those down into 30 minutes, 20 minutes. Some were easier than others, but I lived it. I lived it for, at the time I wrote the book, I've been doing it 12, 13 years in the same place. So writing it was not the challenge. But once I had it, then it was like, well, do I go to a publisher? How do you do that? Do I self-publish it? Do I this? Do I that? And there's a lot of thoughts on that. I believe everyone has a book in them. A lot of people think about writing the book, and then they just don't for a lot of different reasons. So if you are watching this, and what would that book title be for you? And then if you're serious about doing it, I'd love to help you. I'm at Andrew Marotta 21 on Twitter. If you want to email me also, it's Andrew Marotta LLC at gmail.com. Andrew Marotta LLC at gmail.com. I'd be happy to connect with you on that. But I decided to self-publish it. I felt like if I was going to turn it over to a publisher, you're like kind of signing your life away. They can provide a lot of stuff for you in terms of you financially don't have to input anything into the book. They do everything, but then they almost own the book, right? You're almost giving your project to someone else. So I did self-publish this. So that means I own it. I own the book. I worked with a company called 1106 Design, Michelle DiFilippo. She's fantastic. Check her out, 1106 Design. And she did everything from the cover to the formatting to everything. And as she describes in her work, and I agree, even, the hand holding is the best part of what they offer. They did everything. It was like a one-stop shop. I gave them the manuscript. Then there was 1,000 questions back and forth electronically and calls and emails and to get it where I wanted it. And I got to say, well, I want it like this. I want it like that. A lot of Marotta is a pain in the you-know-what, but I wanted the book to look a certain way and feel a certain way. It's got a nice, a nice feel to it. I wanted it that way. The tough thing about self-publishing is that you're doing all the promoting and the marketing and all of that, which is what got me started on social media. But my mindset was never to be a book salesman. My mindset was to be, how can I help others doing this? Because Dr. Gilbert made me realize that I do have a lot to offer. I got a big mouth, but I've had a ton of experience and have made a lot of mistakes, and I learned from those. And I like talking to people, and I talk with my hands like an Italian. So then I just got rolling with it. And once I got the book, it certainly was a financial investment on my end that I had to buy the physical copies. It is on Amazon and all of that kind of stuff. So people that shop that way can. A lot of people have asked me to sign it, so I ship it to them directly. But it's been a wonderful journey. I learned a ton through that. I had someone help me get all these signs here. One of my assistants, Jean Marie Shields, she helps me. She made my custom sign there, with the heart, and so I have some people that do help me. My focus has been on the content, always been on the content, and I try to hire other people that can do all those things that are from creating content and writing the content. And so that's been some of my mindset with it. But if you're thinking about writing a book, I'd be happy to help you. It was a lot of fun. And if you love what you're doing and you love the message that you have, go for it, right? Because when it's all said and done, are you going to say, I'm glad I did, or I wish I would have? And for me to hold this book is very satisfying that I did that. And again, you asked about my kids before. To know that their dad is an author, right? That means a lot to me that they, if kids say, hey, what does your dad do? And now my daughter's old enough, she's on social media. Like kids go to her and like, is your dad an author? Like I saw his book online. Like
that's awesome.
Like that's cool, right? That's
very cool for her.
That my kids are asking my daughter that. So
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's great. And you're also modeling entrepreneurship, I think, for your children as well, which, as we know, going into this, this new world and also just the 21st century in general, that's going to be really important for your children to see that, firstly, no one can tell you you can't be an author these days, right? That's when I was teaching children and experimenting with Google and all of these different sites. Yeah, I realized, like Wattpad and other places where people could self-publish. I realized it was we were coming on this time where we could help children realize their full potential, and that the boundaries had been removed. There were no barriers to them exploring and doing and just becoming an author or a writer and putting that book out there. They don't have to query a publishing company and beg someone to publish their book, right? They could just publish their book with all these tools that's available to them. And I think that you doing that is very inspiring for folks and very, very motivating, and especially for your own children to see. So I'm just so happy for you, and happy to know somebody inspired by you, that you've done this and taken your work to that next level, and your dedication and the perseverance, all of those things that come with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and you're spreading a positive message everywhere. So,
And I'd say this, Jackie, and thank you, as educators, and, right now during this time, it's good that our jobs are secure, right? People are so worried about their pay. I've always had personally multiple streams of income. And I learned that again through my parents, because if I wanted something, I had to buy it. They didn't just buy it for me. So, my first job, I used to, get an allowance at home, but I was a paper boy, and I learned a lot about interacting with people. I learned a lot about, customer service and expectations. They wanted that paper on time. And then there were those people that wanted it folded a certain way, and they wanted it in the mailbox versus in the garage, up under the mat, over here. I learned all those things. But then from that experience, again, the power of a single experience, people started to say, hey, can you let my dog out? Can you water my flowers? Can you cut my grass? Can you paint my foyer? Can you fix this railing? Can you do? And my first company, Handy Andy, was born, right? I had a little
goodness,
company.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome, right? And I got to know people, and they were like dying to hire me, babysitting, whatever. And I did it all, and I learned all these things. I learned the value of money. I learned the value of responsibility. And again, so now I'm a paper boy and Handy Andy, and I had multiple streams of income. And here we are. How many years later? I'm a principal. I was a referee. I'm an author, and they all provide some income for my family, and I learned that from my parents.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this yet, but it looks like it's not stopping at the book about being a principal. It sounds like you have an upcoming book too, yet to be titled. Want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I just about got the title done, and I'm not shy, Jackie. So yeah, there's no questions that aren't on the table.
All right.
And again, you asked about the gift of time earlier. I've had some time to really focus on the second book. After doing the principles Surviving and Thriving, right? I like the theme of surviving and thriving, because really, who's not doing that? All the time? And we start out where we are just trying to survive, right? I've heard so many educators say that, oh my God, I was just barely surviving. And but that's a constant thing in our lives, right? Trying new things, going into different parts of our lives, surviving and thriving. So over this time of being a principal, and I had so many interactions with parents, good and bad, right? And I remember a valedictorian years ago, and I said, hey, the parent, I said, how did you get your kid here? Like, they are just the best kid. He said, I made her read 30 minutes a day from kindergarten on. She read 30 minutes a day, every day, all day, every day. Just like that. It's like he knew what the question I was going to ask him. And this was walking off the stage at graduation. We were walking off the field together. I said, hey, how'd you do that? 30 minutes a day. Like, boom. And there was his answer. So I had many experiences like that. I have so many amazing families in Port Jervis. Their kids volunteering, giving of themselves, helping other people, right? They're just so kind. And I'm like, how did you teach your kid to do that? Well, I used to take them to the food pantry when I, or I made them do this, or I made them do that. And like, I'm like, whoa, there are so many tips that these parents are doing. And I'll tell you another story, right? I had a woman that immigrated to the United States from, it's not Jamaica. It's a Caribbean country, so she had a deep accent. It sounded Jamaican, and I loved her accent. But she said to me one day, she said, "Mr. Marotta, I have 6 nails on my wall for my 3 girls." And I'm like, "Nails, your girl?" Like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And she said, 3 are for their high school diplomas, and 3 are for their college diplomas. My daughters, that's the expectation in my house. I'm a single mom, but that's the expectation, and they're going to work their tails off. And I was like, "You literally have those nails on the wall?" She said, "Absolutely. They know what they're there for. They're on the wall. It's a symbol for them. They are to work to get that." And I was like, wow. Can I share that story? And she was like, "Absolutely,"
Wow.
And so I had a lot of experiences like that, as well as the lessons from my parents. And I said, well, there's the second book, The Parent, Surviving and Thriving. And it's not just a parenting book. There's a lot of tips about parenting in terms of, a kid is never too old to have a bedtime. Have your kid charge their phone downstairs, right? Don't allow them in the room with the door shut, the door locked on the computer, like, hello, but then the message of the book is how to best support your child in their educational journey, as well as how to best interact with schools. Right? So much of this is relationships with the school, with the teacher. If you get angry about something that happens in school as a parent and you go on Facebook and you start blasting people, like they're going to be not wanting to interact with you. Like you can't just say yeah, I lost my temper and I was angry and I did that. Meanwhile, you publicly shame somebody and you might not even have the accurate information. Like I can't tell you how many times that happens. And I'm like, oh, no one wants to touch that anybody anymore because they're afraid that they're going to do that to them, right? So why would they want to interact with that parent when they're afraid that they could go and do something? So everyone's like, but parents don't understand that. Like, what are you doing? These are people working with your kid. You might not be happy with them all the time, but you gotta be able to work with them and communicate with them versus airing your grievances out on Facebook. Like, that's a no-no. And some people feel they're entitled to do that. And you certainly are. But oof. So anyway, there's a lot of things like that in the book. I'm about to hit send to the publisher soon. I am publishing. I signed with EDU Match, which is run by educators. And they're not a publishing company. They're a publishing company run by educators, not a publishing company looking to make all the money in the world and take your books from you.
Right.
So I did sign with them, and I'm excited about it, and it's ready to go here soon.
That is excellent. I couldn't be more excited for you, and I'm looking forward to that too because I think our parents do need support and in help and learning how to be partners with schools, and our schools too also need strategies for bringing parents on as partners instead of as
adversaries.
Folks on the adversaries, exactly, on the opposite sides of the court. So I can't wait to read it, and I look forward to being able to talk about that one next time when we have our podcast.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you asking about it, and again, I'm thinking, you and I have done some great workshops in Putnam Northern Westchester. You've been so flexible in terms of some of my ideas. And I'm looking though, where are there parent workshops? Are there things out there? Because I don't really know, but I know there's a lot of parents that do want support. They do want some help. They do want some guidance. And I think it can be a great resource. So that's one of the things when the book comes out, where are those parent groups and how can I get to them, right? How can I connect with them? And that'll be a new journey,
That's a great question. And I think our parents in the region would love an opportunity to have some more support and tips and strategies on how to work best with their schools. So I'm sure from an educator to parents would be something that all of our educators would love to see happen. And I just want to thank you for your time today, sharing your story, sharing the story of your books, sharing some strategies and bright spots for our folks, and talking to us a little bit about Andrew Marotta, author, high school principal, father, and dreamer, because I think that that is one of the things that I admire most about you, is that you dream it and then you do it. And I look forward to continuing to collaborate with you in multiple ways, and maybe we could work on some of those parent workshops for our region too. That would be great.
That would be great. Jackie, I'd like to leave with one last point. And again, it's been an honor to be on with you. You did a great job. You did a fantastic job here. I enjoyed it, and I hope that these series that you want to do is going to lead. If I can help you and help maybe get you some other people, that would be great. But I wanted to leave our educators that are watching with a couple of tips. Excuse me, again, in the book. And I was kind of going through the book, getting ready for it. And certainly the number one tip in there, and the first one is treat every kid as they're your kid. The last tip is successful or significant, right? About leaving a significant impact on the lives of others. But I just want to do the last couple of tips in the book real quick. Number 122 is that the only people that like change is the baby with a wet diaper. This is a tough time. There's a lot of change out there. Teachers are not used to it. Parents, the kids are being home. Like, they're not used to that. So we need to be mindful of that as we're going through this time. That people, most people are not just like, oh yeah, let me change what I've been doing for years and just start something new. Like, that's challenging, right? So our mindset needs to be, how can we support people because they might be uneasy about that change. Number 123, that was 122. Number 123 is excellence takes extra effort, not a standard effort. Do more than is expected. So right now, Jackie, you asked a great question about leadership during this time. It's wide open. So try different things. Try to make connections. Try to engage your staff and your community and your students, right? I see all kinds of cool stuff going on online and social media. So
I've seen some
try
great
doing those things. And, don't be afraid to do it. And the last one, again, is from my friend, Dr. Gilbert. A setback is a setup for a comeback. It's not the end of the road. It's a bend in the road. And this thing is going to be that. Certainly, there's been a lot of tragedy and loss in our country and the world. But for schools, this is going to be a comeback. This is going to be an agent for change in how we connect with kids. And when we look back in 6 months to a year, what are going to be the positives that come from it? So be open to those changes. Be open to, making a comeback in here, and let's be part of that comeback. So I wanted to share those couple of points before we got, and I appreciate the time, Jackie. Guys, again, I'm at Andrew Marotta 21. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you wanted to reach out, I am at Andrew Marotta LLC at gmail.com is my email.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Andrew. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure about this, but I think it may have been a year ago this week that I did my very first podcast as a guest on your show. So I've got to look back in my records, but I think we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of us actually doing our first podcast together. So isn't that timing that this is about a year later than we're doing this still, and you're on your second book. So thank you. Thank you for our listeners. This has been an episode of Making Meaning with Jackie Levine and my guest, Andrew Marotta. It's been great to have all of you today. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again soon at PNW BOCES. Bye.